From brawls to bench-clearing chaos, today we're diving into the wildest fights in NCAA women's basketball. Basketball is a game of skill, but it's also a game of passion. And when that passion boils over, it can lead to moments no one will forget. Emotions flare, tensions rise, and sometimes it spills out into full-on confrontations. In NCAA women's basketball, these moments are rare but unforgettable. Today, we're counting down the top 6 most intense confrontations that left both players and fans in absolute shock. Whether it's hair-pulling, stomps, or all-out brawls, these games turned from friendly competition to unforgettable battles. Let's get into it. Starting with number 6, the explosive fight between TCU Horned Frogs and George Washington Colonials. It all started with what seemed like a small incident, a hair pull, but in the intensity of the game, that small move became a spark that ignited a full-on fire. With tensions already simmering, one player from TCU grabbed a handful of hair, and suddenly the benches cleared. What followed was complete chaos. Players rushed in, trying to either defend their teammates or separate the fight. Coaches were frantically attempting to pull their players back, but the damage was done. It wasn't just a minor scuffle, this turned into one of the most talked about brawls in recent NCAA women's basketball history. By the time the referees had regained control of the court, 8 players had been ejected. The aftermath of this fight left both teams shaken, and for fans, it was a stark reminder of just how quickly a game can shift from competitive to combative. This incident sparked conversations about sportsmanship, with some questioning whether the intensity of competition was leading to more violent outbursts on the court. Fans debated the incident on social media, with some defending the players' reactions as heat-of-the-moment decisions, while others criticized the lack of control on the court. For many, the aftermath wasn't just about the game itself, but how incidents like this shape future matchups and player rivalries. At number 5, Gardner-Webb versus High Point. If you thought things couldn't get crazier, think again. In this matchup, things escalated even faster. It started out like any other game, players hustling, fighting for position, and giving it their all. But then it happened, a hard foul. Now, fouls are part of the game, but what came next was something nobody saw coming. The fouled player, clearly frustrated, got up and stepped on her opponent's head. That's right, a deliberate stomp. The intensity in the gym skyrocketed. Players from both teams surged toward the middle of the court as referees blew their whistles, trying to bring order to the madness. Fans were on their feet, not in excitement for the game, but in disbelief at what was unfolding. The referees had no choice but to dish out technicals like they were candy on Halloween. Players were sent to the locker rooms, ejected from the game, and the teams were left with thinned-out rosters for the rest of the matchup. After the game, discussions flared up in the media about the line between competitive aggression and unsportsmanlike conduct. This fight wasn't just a physical altercation, it was a complete breakdown of sportsmanship. The incident left a lasting impression, not just on the players involved, but on the entire conference. The aftermath didn't stop at suspensions or fines. It forced the coaching staff and athletic departments to reevaluate player behavior, sparking internal conversations about how to maintain team discipline in high-stress games. The incident became a warning sign for other teams, and the resulting consequences showed that this kind of aggression could leave an impact for seasons to come. If you're loving this breakdown of NCAA women's basketball drama, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your fellow Hoops fans. Let's keep the conversation going. At number 4, this fight on our list comes from one of the most prestigious stages in NCAA women's basketball, the SEC championship game between South Carolina and LSU. These teams were not just playing for pride, they were playing for the title. And with that kind of pressure, tensions were running high right from the tip-off. Throughout the game, both teams played physical basketball, pushing each other to the limit. But the breaking point came when South Carolina's Cardoso got tangled up with an LSU player. What seemed like a routine foul quickly escalated into a full-on confrontation. Cardoso, known for her tough play, wasn't going to back down, and before anyone could react, the pushing and shoving turned into something more. The refs tried to step in, but they were too late. Several players were ejected, including Cardoso herself, who earned a fighting disqualification. What made this fight so memorable wasn't just the physical altercation, it was the fact that it happened on one of the biggest stages in women's college basketball. The fallout from this fight was immense, with analysts and commentators debating for days about what had happened, and whether such intense competition had boiled over too far. For LSU, keeping their composure in the midst of the chaos was crucial to their victory. The media frenzy that followed didn't just focus on the altercation, but on the leadership of both teams, how the coaches handled their players, and how the teams responded in the wake of the drama. In the end, LSU managed to keep their heads cooler and walked away with the championship. But this brawl left an indelible mark on both teams' seasons. At number 3, Arkansas State versus Southern Miss. Now, this one was wild not just for the fight on the court, but for the fact that it spilled over into the stands. That's right, this confrontation didn't just involve players. It started like many of these incidents with a physical play that got out of hand. But when punches started flying, the fans got involved too. After a particularly hard foul, tempers flared, and suddenly, the benches cleared. Players were going at it, trying to defend themselves and their teammates. But then, incredibly, fans from the stands started jumping in, adding fuel to an already explosive situation. Security had to be called in to break up the melee, and when it was all said and done, 5 players and 3 fans were ejected. This wasn't just a game anymore, it was an event that grabbed headlines for weeks. Fans getting involved in player fights is something the NCAA takes extremely seriously, and this brawl highlighted the need for increased security and better control over the court. The game itself was overshadowed by the chaos, and the NCAA came down hard, issuing fines and suspensions in the aftermath. It was one of those rare moments when the intensity of the game spills out beyond the court, creating an unforgettable scene that left everyone in shock. This fight didn't just lead to disciplinary actions, it prompted league-wide discussions about how to handle volatile situations and prevent fan involvement in the future. The intensity and sheer unpredictability of the incident became a defining moment of the season. Coming in at number 2, Stanford versus Colorado in the Pac-12 tournament. This matchup was supposed to be a showcase of elite basketball, but what fans got was much more. During a particularly physical play, Colorado's Hollingshed decided she wasn't going to let Stanford's Brink get the upper hand. So, in the heat of the moment, she straight up facepalmed her. That's right, she shoved her hand right into Brink's face, and, as you can imagine, Brink wasn't having any of it. She responded by firing the ball directly at Hollingshed. The tension on the court was already thick, but this incident pushed it to the breaking point. Players rushed in, the crowd went wild, and before anyone knew it, the referees were throwing out technical fouls like they were party favors. The game was paused as officials tried to sort out the mess. This incident wasn't just about physical aggression, it became a psychological battle too. Both teams had to regroup emotionally, and for Stanford, finding their focus after such an intense moment was key. Even after things calmed down, the energy of the game had changed completely. Stanford may have won the game, but this moment overshadowed everything. For many fans, it's remembered not for the basketball played, but for the intense, emotional confrontation between 2 top players. Hollingshed and Brink's showdown became symbolic of the high stakes and personal rivalries that define college basketball. And finally, at number 1, we have the most recent brawl on this list, Michigan versus Maryland in January 2024. This fight started innocently enough, a fight over a loose ball. But what started as two players hustling quickly turned into an all-out brawl. Michigan's Lauren Hansen and Maryland's Bri McDaniel got tangled up, and things escalated fast. Before anyone could intervene, punches were thrown, and both players found themselves ejected from the game. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite losing Hansen, one of their key players, Michigan rallied. The Wolverines clawed their way back into the game, forcing overtime, and in an incredible turn of events, they managed to win 79-77. For Maryland, the fight not only cost them key players, but it seemed to rattle their focus. Their offense went cold, and they just couldn't recover from the emotional blow. Michigan, on the other hand, used the moment as fuel, turning the chaos into momentum and pulling off one of the most improbable comebacks of the season. It was a game that will be talked about for years, not just because of the fight, but because of the way Michigan turned that moment into triumph. What makes this fight stand out isn't just the intensity on the court. It's the way it shaped the rest of the game, proving that sometimes the biggest wins come after the biggest challenges. Michigan's ability to regroup and dominate the game after such an emotionally draining moment became an instant classic in the history of women's NCAA basketball. And there you have it, the top 6 most intense fights in NCAA women's basketball history. From hair-pulling brawls to full-on melees involving fans, these moments show just how fiery the game can get when emotions run high. But through all the chaos, it's the teams that manage to keep their cool that ultimately come out on top. Whether it's Michigan's incredible comeback after a fight, or Stanford's ability to dominate despite the drama, these games remind us that basketball is as much about mental strength as it is physical skill. Stay tuned, because if history is any indication, there's always more intensity just around the corner. If you enjoyed this breakdown of NCAA basketball's most dramatic moments, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Baller Queens community. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update from the world of women's basketball.